There is only one valid reason I know of why you should keep money in your TSP once you retire from federal service. Now, you may disagree with this comment, but most objections to this statement can be accomplished with solutions outside of your TSP. In this video, we will debunk some of the most common myths you might have heard, provide situations when you might want to look at alternative solutions to your TSP, and provide the one reason why you should keep your TSP in retirement. Welcome. I'm Ed Smith, President of Valor Wealth Partners, where we're dedicated to educating federal employees on your complex and often underutilized benefits. In this video, we really want to be looking at how we can be helping you look at the TSP into retirement. Now, this idea of this topic was brought to from one of our viewers, and we really love it when somebody makes a suggestion. So please keep them coming because we like providing the information that you're asking for. Now, I know this is a controversial topic, and when we get controversial topics, we always get comments that sometimes are counter to what we're saying, and that's perfectly fine. But please keep them friendly, educational, and watch the whole video so you get the full rationale of what we're talking about in this situation. And again, our motive is not to try to get you to move money over to us. We will actually provide solutions in the video that you will be able to use outside of what we might be able to offer for you. We are going to pack this video with other videos that we have used to back up some of the information that we have in here, but it's also going to be so you can dig deeper into some of the comments or ideas that we're going to be looking at. To clarify, we are talking about the TSP once you hit retirement. As a federal employee and you're still employed, there are a lot of phenomenal benefits that you can be able to take advantage of, and you should be using them. These benefits could be the matching, the higher contribution levels than you can get in an IRA, the ease of contributions, and the ability to take a loan. If you want to learn a little bit more about some of these benefits as an early career federal employee, watch this video because there are a lot of things that we go a little bit more in detail with. Let's look at the three most common myths I hear over and over again from federal employees about the TSP. All right, the first one is low fees, or the only place you can get low fees, and that is completely not true. There are many vehicles out there that can get you very close to that, and I'm actually going to provide you three of them that are lower than one of the TSP funds. So let's take a look at the C fund so we can be able to take a look at actually what that cost is and what low fees are and some of those alternatives. So the TSP C fund, according to tsp.gov, the expense ratio or the cost to manage the fund is 0.043. All right, so that's the baseline of what the cost is for the C fund. Now, there's three alternatives that we can be looking at. I'm going to read these to make sure we get these correct. The first one is the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. Now, that symbol is VOO, and the cost is 0.03%. The next one is the Schwab S&P 500 Index. That ticker symbol is SWPPX, and that cost is 0.02. And the final one is the Fidelity 500 Index Fund, and that ticker symbol is FXAIX, and that cost is 0.015. So again, the last one, 0.015, compared to 0.043, you can see it's about a third of the cost of what the C fund is in your TSP. So when you're looking at low fees, there's a lot of solutions out there that are lower than what is in the TSP. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. All right, that the TSP and the funds you should be fighting over 0.02% or something like that. They are very good to have the low fees, and it's great to have those core funds in the portfolio. But it's not the only solution that you have. If that's the reason why you stay in the TSP, you can look outside of that and get different solutions for you. Now, we have a whole video on low fees, so you can take a look at this. Again, they're just more resources for you to be able to look at. The next myth is simple to manage. And yes, the TSP is extremely simple to manage with only 5 funds in the TSP. And then you have the life cycle funds. But just as we saw that low fees can be found outside of the TSP, there's also a lot of other vehicles that you can use that are very simple. Most investment companies have a similarity to the life cycle portfolios, so you can be able to get something that is very similar to that and manage it very easily. Now, this summer, that simplicity goes away. You are going to have thousands of options, and a lot of those options have very high cost, something that is so much higher than what the TSP currently has. The third and final myth I want to discuss today is that you can provide more income by annuitizing your TSP. Now, while this is an option that the TSP offers, most federal employees do not need more income. What they really need is more liquidity. And so by using this option, what you're doing is you're creating more of that guaranteed income sources. Between your Social Security and pensions, most federal employees that I talk to have between 80% and over 100% of their needs or the goals they've identified of what they want to spend in retirement. So if you already have this much income, do you really need more income? Maybe, but probably not. Most people need the flexibility to spend money when they want to or when an opportunity comes up. And even if this does fit into you that you need more income and you want to have more guaranteed income to protect yourself, why would you want to limit yourself to only one option? There's a wide variety of different type of annuity programs out there that you might want to look at. Now, we're not recommending any of them, but what I'm saying is that limiting you to just the TSP might be a bad idea. Now that we have debunked those 3 myths, let's take a look at some other reasons of why you might want to move your money from your TSP. The first one is tax diversification. Having multiple types of accounts of how you pay taxes can be very friendly to you. Now, most federal employees have done an incredible job of saving through their TSP, and this is great, but it can also be very dangerous. Because you only have one type of account, or the majority of your money is in one type of an account, you don't have a lot of choices of how you pay taxes in the future. I recently was looking at a client's portfolio and they had amassed about $2 million in their TSP. And the only other assets they had besides their house was about $25,000 in their checking and savings accounts. This is extremely dangerous, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. But we want to be able to have flexibility so you can be able to make options and choices in the future. One of those reasons why it's dangerous is if you're looking at having reserves. And that client that only had $25,000, that could be very dangerous, that they didn't have enough reserves in case something came up. So by having the diversification and taking money out of your TSP into a non-retirement account can give you some of that flexibility. It can also give you a layer of how you pay taxes in different levels. Now, we don't want to go specifically into the taxes in this video, all right, but we can in future videos to show you a little bit more about what we're talking about here. But having reserves reduces stress when bad things or even good things come up. Say you wanted to buy another house, or you wanted to do something for your kids, or whatever. Having that flexibility and access to money can reduce the stress in the time that you want to be able to spend that money. The next big reason of why diversifying on a tax strategy is important is possibly for Roth conversions. Now, we talk about this a lot in some of our videos. And with a Roth conversions, you're giving yourself a lot of flexibility. If you have choices of what type of account you take the money from, like a Roth has a tax-free distributions on the money that you pull out, a traditional IRA or the traditional TSP has a taxable on both the growth and the principal. So there's a different variation from that. And also a non-retirement has different types of accounts as well. Now, you cannot do a Roth conversion inside your TSP, meaning that you cannot move your traditional component to your Roth component inside the TSP. You can put new contributions into Roth, but you can't move it from one side to the other. You can only do this if you move the money outside of the TSP. So there's some different reasons why you want to do this. To me, the 3 most important reasons of why you might want to do a Roth conversion is that you no longer have taxes on the increase of the money. You do have to pay them currently or when you take it out, but you won't have taxes on the future growth of that money. You are not forced to pay taxes on the required minimum distributions, meaning that you're not forced to take money out of your TSP at a certain point, and so you won't have to pay taxes. You can choose when it is best for you to pay taxes and in what year or what situation is best on those plannings. And the final area is with long-term care planning. By moving your money outside of a traditional component into a Roth, you might have a little bit more flexibility if there is ever a long-term care needs. Now, these are some very advanced topics, and we definitely don't want to go too much into them today, but we also have a video on Roth conversions. So if this is something that is valuable for you, please take a little bit more information, and if they want us to dig a little bit more in, just put some comments and we'll create another video of why this is so important for you. The next reason of why you might move money out of the TSP is you want a more diversified portfolio. Now, the TSP funds are great funds, but they're core funds. By having a more diversified portfolio, you might be able to gain better returns. I'm not saying you will, but you might be able to, and you might also be able to reduce some of the risk because of the diversification that you have. Now, with those core funds, you are only limited to those 5 funds currently. Obviously, we're going to have some changes this summer and you have some more flexibility. But by having that diversification, you can make some choices of what's best for you. Now, I always believe that you having a core base of the portfolio is really good, and the TSP funds could be really good for that, or similar funds to them. But you also might want to have other funds that diversify your portfolio a little bit better. Maybe they give you a sliver of a certain area that you want to be in. Maybe you're socially conscious and you want to be able to have a specific type of funds, or you don't want to have a specific type of investments. Like maybe you don't want to have alcohol or something else in your portfolio. By going outside of the TSP, you can actually specifically say, I want a specific type of funds. There's a wide variety of funds that are available. There's also geographic restrictions that you might have. With the TSP, you might be limited to what they have in that portfolio, such as if you were in countries that you didn't want to be in, like say China and Russia. Now the TSP, as we've been told recently, does not have any Russia in the TSP funds, but that might change over time, and maybe you don't want to have that in your portfolio. By going outside of the TSP, you control the types of investments that you want to be able to have. This is a very important thing to be able to look at, is the flexibility and control over your investments and what you feel is best for you. The last reason is ease of access. Now with the TSP, there's a lot of complex forms that you have to fill out to get a distribution. Now I'm not saying there's not complex forms out there with other accounts that you might possibly have, but you're choosing when to fill out those forms. So if you fill out those forms earlier when you set up the account, like maybe linking bank accounts, it makes it a lot easier when you need money, that you don't have to fill out the form and be making sure that you're doing it all. Sometimes you're in a stressful situation when you need money and you're in a rush, and you might do something that might hurt you because you filled out the form wrongly. Another area is if you're a FERS employee, you need spousal consent or a notarized spousal consent on a form to get the money out of the TSP. Now, this doesn't sound like such a big deal. Like, well, my spouse will give me that money, no problem, she'll sign off on this. But what happens in a situation where they can't? Here's a situation that happened recently, that a federal employee went into the hospital under COVID. Now, even if they're conscious, they're probably not going to be able to get a notary in there, because a lot of times people weren't even getting visitors at that point. Now, that was a federal employee, but what if it was a spouse and you needed their signature to maybe pay bills or to do something else? You wouldn't have access to it. So I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to bring in reasonable solutions that not everything goes the way that we plan. And you have to be able to have alternative pockets of resources when situations happen. And complexity in forms and timing can be a big factor of when you want to get your money, that you have access to your money when you want to be able to do it. We do have a video on TSP and retirement. Please take a look at this. There's some other points in here that you might want to be able to see. But again, there's just other resources that are out there for you. So if this is beneficial for you, take a look at it. We're finally at the point that most of you have been waiting for, or maybe some of you skipped ahead so you could just get right to this. One reason of why I feel you should keep money into your TSP into retirement. And that reason is called the Rule of 55. Quite simply, it says that if you retire at 55 or later, you are able to take money out of your TSP and avoid the 10% early withdrawal penalty. Now, just for clarification, if you roll your money over from the TSP to an IRA, or you have savings in an IRA, and you are under the age of 59 and a half, you would have a 10% penalty to take money out of that account. Now, if you're over 59 and a half, you don't have to worry about this because there's no penalty. So if you're over 59 and a half, you just lost that one reason why I felt that it's beneficial. Now, this is a huge benefit. So if any advisor ever recommends that you move your complete TSP and roll it over to an IRA and you're not going to have to worry about any taxes, that is true, but you might be losing this very important benefit of the Rule of 55. So just be very cautious. It might be appropriate to do that, but you want to be able to do it very cautiously. To clarify, special provision employees have this benefit at 50. So if you retire at 50 as a law enforcement or air traffic controller or other places under special provision, you would actually get it a little bit earlier, and you were able to do that. Just so you know, this is not a benefit that is only available for the TSP. It's an IRS guideline for all employer retirement plans. So if you have another employer retirement plan like a 401k, you would also get this benefit, but you really want to look into the rules to make sure you're doing it correctly. Now, we've talked a lot about the benefits that you could possibly get from moving your money out of the TSP. And you might say, well, geez, Ed, I want to be able to get those benefits, but I don't want to lose this Rule of 55 benefit. There's a way to do this. It's a partial withdrawal. You could move some of your money from your TSP over to an IRA once you leave federal service prior to age 59 and a half, and you could keep some of your money in. So let's look at a scenario of when this is beneficial for you. Let's say you retire under minimum retirement age, you have 30 years in, and you're 57. You have 2.5 years before you're going to hit that 59 and a half and where you would have that penalty. So you want to leave a certain amount of money into the TSP. Let's say you need $20,000 to supplement your special retirement supplement and your pension or any work that you might have or other income sources you might have. You need $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year times the 2.5 years till you hit 59 and a half would be $50,000. It would be very dangerous to only keep $50,000 in your TSP. You should have a lot more than that. I would say at least double. So you want to have that $50,000 number of the income that you need and then add another $50,000, so at least $100,000. You probably want to have more than that because you never know what life is going to throw at you, and you want to have plenty of access to your money in case something bad or good happens and you want to be able to take more money out of your TSP. So maybe you look at having $300,000 or even $500,000 that you keep in your TSP. You could keep all of it there if you didn't want to be able to take advantage of some of those other benefits. So there's a wide variety of different things you can do and how you can use the rule of 55, but just make sure you don't lose this by rolling the money over to an IRA too early. In summary, the TSP is an incredible accumulation vehicle while you're still employed under federal service. But once you retire and you go into the distribution phase, the TSP really lags in this area. You really want to have a good distribution plan so you know where income and different sources of money is going to come from while you're into retirement. And if you're under 59 and a half, please make sure you have planned for this and you know how to use the rule of 55. We want the best solutions for you and your family, so please get unbiased, conflict-free advice. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to educating you in the next video.